A royal wedding was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became the event that exposed just how completely Prince Harry has been shut out of the family he was born into. Not quietly, not temporarily. Completely, because when Peter Phillips walked into that church surrounded by nearly every major royal figure, one absence screamed louder than anyone present. Harry wasn't there. And according to insiders, that wasn't an accident. It wasn't scheduling, it wasn't distance, it wasn't a personal choice. It was something far more devastating. Harry was never welcome in the first place.
Royals celebrated the wedding of Queen Elizabeth's favorite grandson, but Harry and Meghan weren't invited.
Harry trying to put it around that he decided to steer clear of that. No, that's not true. He wasn't invited.
Nobody wanted Harry there either, because Harry has completely blotted his copy with that family and the group of family friends, because nobody can trust Harry anymore.
The royal family gathered together for another wedding, and the Sussexes were nowhere to be seen. If I were Meghan, I would find that deeply embarrassing. Let's be fair.
On the off chance that Harry and Meghan had turned up or were invited and said that they would attend, William and Catherine would not attend. I mean, that is how bad this division, this split between the two brothers is.
If Meghan is at all feeling embarrassed by this, she should, because she caused it, and she looks horrible. I think we could all agree on that.
His feelings were hurt by the idea of all of the cousins together, laughing, joking, remembering Queen Elizabeth, remembering Prince Philip, and he felt excluded from that.
Perhaps more awkwardly, you do not invite the people who bear no meaningful purpose in your life.
The images from the wedding told a story all by themselves. The king was there, William and Catherine were there, Princess Anne's family arrived smiling. Beatrice and Eugenie appeared alongside other relatives. The atmosphere looked relaxed, warm, and united. Yet one name hung over the entire event like a shadow. Harry, the man who was once considered one of the most popular royals in the world, was nowhere to be seen. And the explanations that followed only made the situation look worse. When reports first emerged about the wedding guest list, stories suddenly appeared suggesting Harry had supposedly decided not to attend. The narrative seemed carefully packaged. He wasn't excluded. He simply chose not to go. But almost immediately, palace insiders began telling a very different story. A much colder story. One that suggested the decision had already been made long before anyone discussed attendance. Because according to those sources, Harry was never under consideration.
Harry and Meghan's names were not mentioned, that they are persona non grata to such an extent that everybody understood it would be a solecism to mention the names of wait for it, I made a note of it, the tosser and the dosser.
Peter Phillips, the son of Princess Anne and the late Queen's eldest grandchild, was celebrating one of the biggest days of his life. Family weddings reveal everything. They reveal who matters. They reveal who remains trusted. They reveal who belongs. And according to insiders, the guest list delivered a brutal message. Everyone important to Peter was there. Everyone except Harry and Meghan. What makes this even more explosive is what allegedly happened behind the scenes. Sources claim that concerns about disruption overshadowed any possibility of an invitation. Not because of security, not because of logistics, because of trust, or rather, the complete absence of it.
Harry trying to put it around that he decided to steer clear of that. No, that's not true. He wasn't invited. Nothing says that Harry and Meghan are pariahs, are now banished from royal circles, more than what we saw at the weekend.
The reported language coming from palace circles stunned royal watchers. The suggestion that Harry and Meghan could somehow overshadow or damage such an important family occasion painted a picture far darker than many expected. Suddenly, this wasn't about a missed wedding anymore. It was about reputation. It was about consequences. It was about a family deciding that peace mattered more than reconciliation. Then came another revelation that turned an already painful situation into something even more humiliating.
The relationship may have been hanging by a thread, but there was still a thread. Now that thread appears to have snapped. Family weddings are different. You invite the people you want beside you when you celebrate one of the biggest days of your life.
According to multiple reports, there was no dramatic argument over whether Harry should attend. No emotional discussion, no last-minute debate, no faction fighting on his behalf. That may be the most shocking part of all. Not rejection, indifference, because nothing hurts quite like realizing nobody is even discussing your return. And then insiders delivered the statement that seemed to summarize the entire situation in one devastating sentence. William was always going to win. 5 words. 5 simple words that expose the reality of the power balance inside the royal family. Because while Harry once imagined himself standing beside his brother as an equal partner in the future of the monarchy, those days now seem unimaginably distant. Sources describe a situation where one brother represents the institution's future while the other represents its most public family crisis. That contrast appears to have become impossible to ignore. What makes this entire situation even more dramatic is the role Peter Phillips allegedly played. For years, Peter was viewed as one of the relatives capable of maintaining peace between both brothers. During difficult moments, he often appeared as a calming presence. But according to reports, even that connection has faded. If true, it means Harry isn't simply losing access to William. He's losing access to the cousins, relatives, and family members who once stood between the two sides. And then came Harry's reported attempt to explain the situation away. According to reports, stories emerged suggesting he intentionally skipped the wedding because of old disagreements involving media coverage surrounding Peter's first marriage. The explanation immediately raised eyebrows. Why? Because public appearances over recent years showed no obvious hostility between the cousins. In fact, they appeared perfectly capable of interacting at major royal events. That made the explanation look less like a reason and more like damage control. Harry's failed attempt to explain away the wedding snub may have embarrassed him, but what happened next was even worse. Because according to insiders, the real damage wasn't the missing invitation. It was what the absence revealed about how the royal family now sees him. For years, the public framed everything as William versus Harry, 2 brothers trapped in an endless feud. But this wedding exposed something much bigger. This wasn't one brother shutting out another. This was an entire generation moving on without him. Sources claim that throughout the wedding celebrations, Harry and Meghan's names barely surfaced. Not in speeches, not in conversations, not in private discussions. The silence itself became the story. And according to reports, that silence wasn't accidental. It reflected a family that had reached a conclusion. Trust had been broken and nobody knew how to put it back together. The people who once shared childhood holidays, family gatherings, and private memories with Harry now reportedly viewed him through an entirely different lens. Every conversation carried risk. Every interaction carried uncertainty. The fear, according to insiders, was that private moments might eventually become public stories. As a result, the wedding reportedly became something many family members hadn't experienced in years. Relaxation. They could laugh freely. They could reminisce about the late Queen and Prince Philip. They could enjoy themselves without wondering whether a casual remark might someday appear in a documentary, a memoir, or an interview. That may be the most heartbreaking part of all. Harry wasn't being treated as a family member anymore. He was allegedly being treated as a liability. What makes this situation even more painful is that Harry's cousins appear to have reached their own conclusions. Peter Phillips, Zara Tyndall, Beatrice, Eugenie, Louise, James, they all experienced the same difficult years surrounding the Queen's final chapter. They all witnessed family tensions unfold in public. They all watched headlines dominate conversations that once belonged behind palace walls. According to observers, many of them never forgot it, and family weddings reveal who remains close when everything else falls away. The exclusion becomes even more striking when compared with another controversial royal figure. Prince Andrew's daughters reportedly attended and were welcomed warmly despite the enormous controversies surrounding their father. Yet Harry, the king's own son, remained absent. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. For many observers, it suggested that blood alone was no longer enough to guarantee inclusion. Trust had become the true currency of royal life, and Harry's account appeared empty. Meanwhile, reports suggest Harry privately believed reconciliation efforts would eventually count for something. Quiet outreach, attempts to reconnect, olive branches extended away from public view. But according to insiders, those efforts achieved little. The family's position had already hardened. William reportedly viewed the wedding as confirmation that the Sussexes were no longer drifting back toward the royal fold. The separation wasn't temporary anymore. It had become permanent. And while those doors appeared to be closing in Britain, life in California wasn't delivering the triumphant alternative many once predicted. Harry and Meghan left royal life promising independence, freedom, and opportunity. Yet critics increasingly point to setbacks, stalled projects, and public fatigue. Business ventures face scrutiny. Media projects face criticism. Every new announcement seems to trigger fresh questions rather than fresh excitement. The contrast has become difficult to ignore. On one side stands William, increasingly associated with future leadership and royal responsibilities. On the other stands Harry, still fighting battles that many believe were settled years ago. Perhaps that's why this wedding mattered so much. It wasn't just another family gathering, it was a snapshot of the future, a glimpse of where everyone stands now. William at the center, the royal family united around him, the institution moving forward, and Harry watching from thousands of miles away. For years, many believed there would eventually be a dramatic reconciliation, a family summit, a breakthrough conversation, some grand moment where old wounds finally healed. But according to those closest to the situation, this wedding delivered a far colder message. The family isn't waiting anymore. They've adjusted to life without him, and that may be the hardest reality for Harry to accept. Not anger, not hostility, not confrontation. Absence, the realization that the family gatherings continue, the celebrations continue, the laughter continues, and the invitations continue just without him. The wedding that should have been a joyful family occasion became something else entirely. Proof that Harry didn't just lose his place beside William, he may have lost his place within the entire generation he once called family. And if insiders are right, that realization is only beginning to sink in, because the door didn't simply close. According to those watching from inside the palace walls, it may have locked for good.